when we're talking about these lumps, what kinds of things are causing them? You're saying like stuff in the environment, vaccines. Is that part of what? Like, why are they getting these?
Right. So you think of all the chemicals that our dogs are exposed to, right? Lawn chemicals, vaccines, flea and tick chemicals, chemicals in their food, chemicals in the water. You know, a lot of people will, like the dogs are drinking tap water and the humans are drinking filtered water. Mm-hmm. Or they'll think, well, the dog has to walk on the grass because, you know, they got to pee on the grass. They're not going to pee in the middle of the street. But even that contact with lawn chemicals, you know, has been proven to cause cancers.
Welcome back to the Crunchy Carnivore Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Melissa Weidenhammer. I'm a natural rearing breeder and certified canine nutritionist. I am here with my dear friend, holistic veterinarian, Dr. Jessica Levy. And then also today we have a special guest with us. Nicole Nelson and I have been friends for a long time, but we also bred dogs naturally together. And so she's really been on this journey with us and learning a lot of these practices for a long time and always brings kind of great insights. And so I'm going to let Nicole just kind of introduce herself a little bit.
All right, so kind of my journey started about 15 years ago after I had a really sick dog with allergies and a bunch of things that I did everything wrong with. And so she was kind of what started me on my journey with my next puppy. I'm like, I can't do things the same. So I'm doing stuff different, and it started out with a raw diet, and then slowly, like over the past 15 years, it's just kind of evolved into all these different things. And so breeding with Melissa really opened my eyes to a lot of the different aspects of, you know, vaccines, spay, neuter, you know, just this holistic stuff. So now I'm just passionate about talking with them and learning more about the natural rearing and bringing your dogs up naturally.
Awesome. So we love having Nicole on because you really keep tabs on what is being really talked about online as like heavily focused, and some really great questions that people ask and stuff like that. And so the topic that you brought today wasn't so much a question that was asked online, but it was more of just really like what you're seeing a lot of people are struggling with or talking about or wondering about. And I love this topic. It's a big topic. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to kind of just let you share what you were seeing online or what you experienced that actually kind of brought this topic about, and I'll let you kind of just introduce what we're going to be talking about.
Okay, so a lot of people are talking about lumps, bumps, and cancers, and like where is this coming from, and like why, and what should we do about it? And it seems like the theme is leaning in the direction of, you know, raw feeding, minimal vaccines, and maybe that's going to help with this cancer problem. There's some theories that I've noticed people talking about that I've kind of looked into, and I'll just briefly touch on it and then we can go on from there. But the theory was if sickness or whatever, if your body's constantly trying to detox, and then we give a medication to essentially stop their body from detoxing, do the toxins stay in the body and form a little bubble around themselves that we're calling cancer? Or like what is in these lumps and bumps? Is it the body trying to protect itself from something because it's not able to push it out for whatever reason? So that was kind of this thing that I saw, and then I started thinking about my neighbor's dog Lucy, who is this yellow lab, and she was such a nice dog, but she had this lump on the side of her that was literally probably bigger than like a big watermelon that she lived with for 5 years. It was never necessarily confirmed if it was cancer or not, and they just decided to leave it alone, and they never did anything with it, and she lived for 5 more great years with this giant lump on her body. So then it just made me think, like, what was inside of that? Did she live so long with it because they didn't mess with it? And just like, what is going on?
So I think like the most important place for us to start when we're talking about this is to really define what cancer even is before we can get into all of the other things surrounding it. And so I recently lost my matriarch of my breeding program in the last few months. Her name was Piper. And she was very healthy. And then all of the sudden, she developed, like, she just got really sick. And this all happened within a week. And then we lost her. But as we went through this was kind of a situation where she developed something really large on the side of her neck. She got very lethargic. She didn't want to eat. It got pretty ugly pretty fast, but we decided, because of what you're talking about, I didn't want to mess with it. I didn't want somebody to go in and poke and prod. I'm like, if this is a cancer situation, I know I'm not going to do chemotherapy. I know I'm not going to do those things. And I had this book that had been sitting on my shelf, and it's called There's a Mushroom for That by Dr. Robert Silver. And he actually has a specific chapter in here about cancer, and he has a really good description of what cancer is. So I'm going to just read that, and then we'll kind of go from there. So what he says is, cancer is defined as the uncontrolled growth of cells that have had their genetic code altered through mutations so that they never mature and die as normal cells do. They just keep multiplying and spreading. It is by means of this growth and this spread that cancer does its damage, which ultimately may take the patient's life. Even if not terminal, cancer can cause a lot of distress and a loss of quality of life for your pet and your entire family. Not all cancers are the same. And so I know, Dr. Levy, that when we were talking about this, that cellular process was a huge piece of the conversation. And so I think what was really eye-opening for me is to realize that these are like turbo cells that don't die. They don't finish out that process.
Right.
So can you kind of expand on that a little?
So cancer cells have the quality of immortality. So they take themselves out of the normal cell cycle, right? Our cells are supposed to reproduce, and in the process, the mother cell itself dies. And then there's like a normal cell life cycle where they perform whatever functions they're supposed to perform for however long they're supposed to survive. Like, we know how long every different cell type in the body lives, right? But at the end of their time, they're supposed to die and go away. And that's how we have kind of a normal number of cells that kind of stays the same from day to day and from season to season. So with cancer cells, one of the things that happens is they fall out of that normal cycle. So they reproduce, but they no longer get to the point where the original cells die. They just stop doing that. And so you end up with more and more of them. Another thing that happens with cancer cells is that they lose that cell-to-cell inhibition that signals to normal cells, you cannot keep getting bigger, you cannot keep reproducing, because there's a cell right up against you and you need to stop and like stay in your own space and not overtake surrounding tissues. And cancer cells are like, I don't care, there's going to be more and more of us. And I'm sorry, we might have to shove you out of the way a little bit because we're taking up space here. And so you can see how if cells do that continuously, if you have something like a solid tumor that's taking up space, it will just continue to take up more and more space and infiltrate surrounding tissues, and those structures will suffer as a result. I don't know if that's super clear. I think about, like, probably one of the easiest ways to see that, if you look at a dog with an oral cancer in its mouth, something that is malignant will start to shove the teeth out of their sockets, and they'll, move the jawbone away from where it's supposed to be. These cancer cells literally are like, oh, I need more space. Get away from me. I'm taking up the space here. In veterinary medicine, like, really, every type of tumor is a cancer, and some are malignant and some are benign. And I've heard people say, oh, my dog has this tumor growing on its side, but it's not cancerous. Well, technically it is cancer, just that some cancers are harmful and can potentially end your life early. And some cancers don't really bother the cells around them. They don't infiltrate other tissues. They don't spread to other parts of the body. They're not destructive. And so those are benign tumors, but they are still a type of cancer.
So that was interesting for me. Like before we had this show today, we were talking about that, and I don't think I realized that was like what was considered cancer. And now I'm thinking I had this boxer who had giant lumps on her leg, like picture like 3 golf balls or something, just as like look like that. And they're like, we can remove it, but it's gonna come back stronger. Well, I wanted to test it out, so I did get it removed, and then it came back stronger. So if you have a dog with these lumps and you get them removed, but why are they coming back stronger? Because you didn't get to like the mother cells, or like what?
Sometimes we don't know if there were a few cells left behind, and then they're just like, okay, we're going to do this whole cycle again.
Okay.
Here we are growing out of control. So that's what happened to my dog Danny, who we euthanized on Wednesday. She developed a mast cell tumor, which honestly I could tell what it was by looking at it, but it was like an isolated thing. It was bothering her. She was licking at it quite a bit. It was ulcerated. It did not look great. So I had it removed, which they were not able to get all of the cells, and it was a very high-grade malignant tumor. And so she had a great couple of weeks, and then it came back like fire. It came back in the original location, and then all around that area, and everything was red and inflamed and angry, and I was not able to get on top of it with treatment. And towards the end, she was still eating, because that dog was a survivor. She was a champ. But she was very uncomfortable and got to the point where she could not lie down and rest because she could not get comfortable. So that was when we kind of called it. But nowadays, there's questions like, I read an article recently about breast cancer in humans, and they're starting to question like, should we stick a needle in these things? Maybe we shouldn't, because sometimes that's enough to aggravate.
And that's been my thought.
Yeah,
that's been my
and
thought.
then it gets worse. Now, veterinary oncologists tell us in lectures, they're like, every lump, you got to find out what it is, because a chance to remove it. So that's what they always say, is a chance to cut is a chance to cure, because theoretically, cancer is only in this one spot, and if you remove it, then you don't have cancer anymore.
Right.
Which of course is not true. Cancer is always a body-wide event. I remember this doctor on NPR saying once that when you develop cancer, it's because your body has made a mistake. And I don't even think that's possible. There's no scenario that makes sense to me in which every cell in your body does not know what every other cell is doing. And it's not like your cancer surveillance systems that are running all the time. It's not like they're going to say, oh gosh, I was watching the game, and while I was looking away, these cells grew out of control. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. That's not possible. So then if you do get cancer, we were talking about like, what are the possible causes?
Right.
What does that mean about the process that is going on in your pet's body?
Yep.
If your neighbor's dog lived that long with this huge tumor on its side, the tumor was probably not malignant, because things that are malignant are more likely to kill you. There's a lot of benign tumors. I think probably most of the lumps and bumps that dogs get, especially as they get older, are probably benign. And so if you think about like lipomas are super common, right? They're benign tumors. It is a form of cancer, but it is completely benign. And basically what happens is your body encounters a chemical that it can't metabolize, something it can't break down. And so it socks it away in this nice capsule of fat and builds up a fat blob around it. And then a successful immune system perks it somewhere. A lot of times on the like close to the surface of the body in the skin, sometimes under a layer of muscle. They could be internal, but most of the time, like a successful immune system will shove stuff to the surface or close to the surface.
Okay.
And lipomas can happen anywhere. I had one dog where like the whole left side of his neck was a giant lipoma. My mini golden doodle he's got like one on his knee, one in the middle of his back. He's got one on his front leg. But again, that is what is kind of keeping the interior of his body.
It's a protective mechanism.
Yes.
It's like you say,
free of those chemicals. Now, lipomas bother people like crazy because every time you pet your dog, you're like, oh gosh, there's that lump again.
Right.
Is it getting bigger? I think maybe it is getting bigger. Is it, is this something I should be worried about? And so a lot of times people go to the vet because they want those lipomas gone. Even if they're the size of the watermelon, which I've seen those, sometimes they get really big. Even so, they don't penetrate other tissues. They don't metastasize to, like, they don't spread to your dog's lungs. They really don't cause any problems. The only time you maybe should have one removed is if it's in a very inconvenient location. So like I've seen dogs that have like a big tumor growing in their armpit, and even though it's benign, the dog has to walk like this because there's this big growth there. That's something that you could potentially think about having removed just to make the dog more comfortable and able to walk more normally. So I've seen some articles where people talk about how to get rid of lipomas naturally, and basically it's, you know, to detox your dog. And that is so rarely successful because it's such a good protective mechanism. Like, it's working. And therefore we should probably just respect it and leave it alone. I have seen some cases, like one of my sisters with her pit bull, the dog became very lumpy bumpy. She switched it to a raw diet. All the lumps and bumps went away. That has not been my experience with my own dogs. But I think those benign lumps and bumps, they do serve a purpose.
So this kind of is a question and kind of how I'm thinking about it, and maybe this is right or wrong. So my neighbor's dog with the watermelon tumor. In my mind, I'm picturing, like, is it a water balloon full of fat and toxins? And if they were to try to get it removed, does that pop the water balloon and spread this stuff through its body? Like, did the dog get more years because they left it alone? Or I'm sure that's hard to say, but like, is there a way to think of it like that, where it's like, let's not touch this thing because that's going to make things worse? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Unless it's like physically doing, like, they can't move properly because of it. Okay.
Right. And so, yes, it does serve a purpose. It's a protective mechanism for the body. So it's taking whatever molecules, whatever chemicals your body can't deal with, and putting them someplace safe where they're not exposed to the rest of the body. So in the past, when I used to do surgeries, when I've removed lipomas, they have a pretty firm capsule around them. So they're well encapsulated. They're kind of sequestered away from the rest of the body. And that's why it's such an effective mechanism. So sometimes people are very bothered by these things and they do have them removed. I don't think it necessarily makes things worse, because again, it's safe in this capsule, and so you can remove the encapsulated mass. But then it is a successful mechanism for the body. And so you might think like, oh gosh, we had 2 of these lipomas removed last year, now he has more. It's working.
Okay, and now I'm thinking of my boxer and her leg. And I'm like, instead of me looking at it thinking, oh my gosh, I need to save you from this tumor, I should have been thinking, your body's awesome. And it is protecting you, and all I'm going to do is screw it up. Like these are beautiful things, even though to us they look disgusting.
And honestly, with the past 2 dogs that I've had who have died, both of them died of cancer. Anton had bone cancer in our front leg, and then Danny had this mast cell tumor. And in retrospect, should have left him alone. Right? So yeah, there's definitely good rationale there. So
when we're talking about these lumps, what kinds of things are causing them? You're saying like stuff in the environment, vaccines. Is that part of what? Like, what is? Why are they getting these?
Right. So you think of all the chemicals that our dogs are exposed to, right? Lawn chemicals, vaccines, flea and tick chemicals, chemicals in their food, chemicals in the water. You know, a lot of people will, like, the dogs are drinking tap water and the humans are drinking filtered water. Or they'll think, well, the dog has to walk on the grass because, you know, they got to pee on the grass. They're not going to pee in the middle of the street. But even that contact with lawn chemicals, you know, has been proven to cause cancer. So, and then, you know, there's definitely a lot of people out there who are more afraid of Lyme disease than they are afraid of the chemicals that they're feeding their dog or putting on their dog to keep ticks off the dog, although those things are not repellents.
No, they're not.
So yeah, there's a lot of factors there.
Because I'm even thinking now that you're saying this, like, what are you cleaning your floor with that your dog's walking on?
Right.
What are you washing the blankets that they're laying on with, and ourselves too, but
Sure.
like, so these are all things, and either it's like a slow creep of all these different little things, or it's a big something that
Big
happens,
exposure, maybe.
a big exposure, and all these lumps is their body's like, I can't have this in my important parts, so I'm gonna just put it right here.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's 100% what's happening.
All right.
There's a book by Andreas Moritz called Cancer is Not a Disease, It's a Survival Mechanism. And so he kind of covers a lot of this information.
And that is such like, as soon as I was a little bit like exposed to that idea of exactly what you just said, like this is like that changes how you think of this whole thing.
Well, and it really just doubles down on kind of the message that we bring, where it's like, it's all of the little choices that you make for your dog that really can either bring problems or help stave them off. I mean, if you're looking at cancer as, you know, your dog's system trying to kick out stuff, you know, and then you realize, oh, there's a lot that I can do to not introduce this into these chemicals and these toxins into my dog's system. There's a lot less for them to fight. And so it just really puts a whole nother level of importance, I feel like, of a light is shown on these lifestyle choices because of, man, cancer is a big one. And it's like, if that also is added into this camp of, you know, it can be massively affected one way or the other by what you're deciding for them, like that's worth really thinking about and looking at things differently.
Right, to some extent, right? Because we also have generational influences. There's inherited DNA damage that is going to perhaps predispose our pets to some sort of cancer.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors there. But that's why I always think like we control the things that we can,
Right.
and then, you know, you kind of have to let go of some of the stuff that we're not in control of.
So the things like we are in control of or could be is what we're feeding them. It goes back to that.
Yep.
We can be in control of like the chemicals in our lawn. We can be in control of like the cleaning supplies we use. What other things can we be in control of? And then let's talk about kind of what we can. Okay, vaccines. We can be in control of that.
Stuff for fleas and ticks.
Okay. So those
The
are
water they're drinking. I mean, I think a lot of people do not give enough attention to what is in the water. It is insane when you look at tap water, what can be found in there and the levels of what can be found on there. I mean, it's not safe for us. It's certainly not safe for them, especially when you think about the fact that there are things that humans can consume that dogs can't. And they have no choice. They're drinking it. And so I think, you know, it's worth thinking about that a little bit more seriously. But I mean, it's like even like another thing that I remember learning early on that I was like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought about that. And so now I tell everybody is dog beds. Like think about how often your dog is on their dog bed, they're laying on it, they're in contact with it, they're breathing it. And there is a ton of chemicals put on dog beds if you don't buy the right kind. Flame retardants, what it's made out of, like that is like, I was like, oh my gosh. You know, it's kind of like when you think about what am I cleaning my floor with? They have no shoes on. They're walking on this floor. They're licking their paws, the grass. Like you have to think dogs are not clothed. And so it's, you know, it's like, it sounds like such a minor thing. Oh, like who cares what dog bed I buy?
right.
Think about that.
But then I think you can get into, are you scared of the world?
Right, which is a very good point.
Right? So so there's got to be a line, or you've got to stop yourself at some point of like,
You can drive yourself crazy.
So we kind of talked about this before too. Like, okay, so you can be on defense, like I'm blocking this, but then you also can be on offense.
Yes.
And so there's things that we can do, whether they have cancer or not, that are trying to be like, we accept that some of these things are out of our control, but like, what are we supposed to do, like, for the things that are out of our control?
Detoxify or die.
Okay, end of episode.
Yeah. That was too aggressive.
But that's why we pay attention to what we feed them, what we put into their bodies, what we expose them to, because we do need to be able to detoxify stuff. So
Yep. And you can look at it from a daily basis. You could look at it. You have a wonderful seasonal protocol that people can use with some high quality supplements that they can do different seasons of the year, focus on different parts of the body to help detoxify. So there is definitely a lot that you can do. Going back to when I had Piper and I wasn't sure if she was going to make it or not. We did a lot that week, and I thought at one point she was going to turn a corner and I was going to rehab this dog out of a cancerous situation. I was determined to do that. And so, but then I lost her, but I had made this whole plan. I wrote it up. I was ready. I was like, I had the supplements ordered. I was like, I'm going to help this dog. And what I decided once I lost her, the supplements came anyway. And I looked at what was in this book, and his chapter on cancer is so good, and in different things that you can do to deal with it. There are really several things you can do as a proactive in the dog's daily life. It's not hard to do, and it's just beneficial for their health anyway, and you could potentially head some of this cancer stuff off at the pass. And so I just decided at that point, why would I not treat my young healthy dogs the way that I was going to treat Piper, in pouring into them, so that, God willing, even if I can't avoid it completely, because I'm not stupid enough to think that I can, there's some magic bullet, but if I can give them that many more years, or, if something does hit them, it's going to be not as severe or something like that, then I'm going to do those things. And so that's kind of what I've currently started doing. And I just think, let's be proactive and let's do some of these things that I would do for a dog for cancer, just in my dog's daily life, to try and help so them.
Some of these things look like detoxing type of stuff, or supplements to detox, or what are you saying that you're implementing? So
I was just much more aware of, I already do a balanced raw diet, which is, void of a lot of starches and carbs. That is a huge cancer feeder. And so I want none of that, to the best of my ability. If they do get something like sweet potatoes or something like that, I'm going to keep it much more minimal. I'm not going to be a freak about it, but I'm not going to be throwing them in their bowl all the time necessarily. So choosing things that are higher in antioxidants. So honing in on some of those produce items that might be, blueberries are extremely high in antioxidants. And so that's just one of my favorite go-tos. If I am going to give them fruit, I'm going to do blueberries. Medicinal mushrooms are incredibly powerful against cancer, especially turkey tail has been looked at a ton. So I've got a medicinal mushroom tincture that I give, and then also a CBD that also has curcumin in it. So CBD and then curcumin are both powerful against cancer, and they're just, again, beneficial for their system in general. So those are just a few of the things. I didn't go crazy. I'm not doing 15 things a day, but I'm like, I can take these 2 or 3 things that I was going to do for Piper anyway, and I'm going to just do them for my young healthy girls, and let's see what kind of impact we get, because they've been naturally reared. I already know their history. There's a lot of damage that has not been done, but now I want to, like you said, I'm going to go on the offense, and I'm going to get ahead of that. And I just try and learn, obviously, continue to learn, and anything else that I come across that I might add to that toolbox, I'm going to.
Okay.
So you're already there, Melissa. You already are starting with, not necessarily with Piper, but with your puppies. They're not puppies anymore, but
they're 2 and 3 now. But yes, I raised them, and we know exactly what's been done with them.
They're already naturally reared. And so I think in general, it's worth starting these things at any age. I have people come in sometimes with dogs who are 16, and that's when we're going to start raw feeding. If they don't have cancer, we are going to swing into prevention mode. I often start this with dogs as soon as they hit 8, 9, 10 years old. We're going into cancer prevention because it is so common, right? At this point, 62% of dogs are dying of cancer. So we have to take action as early as we can. So I'm kind of doing the same thing. The supplements that I bought for Danny that I had implemented for her. So now I'm using them for my other dogs as well. But even for people who haven't started anything at this point, now is a great time to start. You just start where you are. You can change your dog's diet. I don't care how old the dog is. You can feed your dog a raw diet, and also you can make it more ketogenic. Right. The ketogenic diet for dogs is your basic raw diet with a little bit of extra fat, and you cut the carbs.
Yep.
Which the raw diet doesn't already have, but
right.
you kind of pay more attention to it. We can stop using chemicals to kill all the fleas and ticks, blah, 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 that are also probably poisoning us as well as our dogs. You can implement supplements at any point. And I always tell people, like, the best gift that we can give our dogs is stop vaccinating now. So even if you vaccinated your dog all their lives and now they're 12, just stop while you're ahead.
Yeah, well, and so that one of the things that I'm passionate about, like, in this natural breeding world, is like, what a gift to be able to give somebody a puppy that started off pure. We kind of found the term
that
pure.
Term. Yeah.
Clean, I like to say.
Yeah.
But like, I know that it's not everybody can do that, but if you just keep that in mind, if you're looking for one, like, do you want to get one that's never had a vaccine, that's never had kibble, that's never had flea and tick preventative, that's never had, the worm like, what a gift to give you this pure puppy, and start from birth. That's why I'm so passionate about, like, the natural rearing breeding programs. But like you're saying, that really isn't the norm at all.
No.
Even if you're gonna stop vaccinating when they're, a puppy, they've mostly already gotten them. Most of them are kibble.
Right.
But you're saying just start. Start.
And so this natural rearing, I mean, this is why I just bought a puppy. Danny had cancer. My pit bull's 15. And I had the opportunity to buy a naturally reared, mostly raw fed, unvaccinated puppy. And so I kind of jumped on it. It's not a guarantee.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So that's a big thing that we all have to come to terms with. We're doing the best we can. We're managing epigenetics as best as we are able. But there's already enough chemicals out there in the world that we're exposing our fresh little babies to. There's stuff that we don't have control over. So
I'm going to just address the term epigenetics, because I love this conversation, being a natural rearing breeder and pouring so much into that concept. So epigenetics is basically the idea that you can alter genetic makeup by the lifestyle choices that are made.
Well, maybe not makeup, but expression.
And so, but the reality of that is, if it takes 3 to 5 generations of naturally rearing and breeding dogs to clear out genetic damage, to really bring that epigenetic concept into full force. And so I think a really important thing to talk about, and I know I've seen this in my girls that it was first generation naturally reared, stuff shows up in them even though I didn't do anything. Evie is my perfect example. So she's older now. She's Daisy's sister. Daisy has not really had any issues, which is amazing. But Evie was about a year old and all of a sudden developed this huge lump on her hip. And I was like, and in my head, because now what I know, I was like, it looks like that's where she would have gotten a rabies shot. Like, it looks like this reaction to, but clearly I hadn't done that. And so after that lump showed up, it just stayed there. And every once in a while, she gets looks like hives all over her body. They raise up, she looks like a little cheetah, and then they go away. And it's always been so curious to me. Well, she's now, what are they, 7 and a half. And the interesting thing about this, I did have it checked out because I was like, what in the world? There was we had it aspirated. There was absolutely nothing. It was a clump of cells. There was nothing wrong with this lump. There is, in all the years that I have paid attention and done things for her, there was no environmental trigger for these hives. And so in my best estimation, I am watching genetic vaccine damage show up in a naturally reared dog. And I think there's no way for us to prove that, okay? But we have to take a step back and look at some of these things. And so I think it's important for people to understand that even in fully naturally reared animals, these things can show up, whether it's genetic baggage that's trying to be cleaned out, or there's something in the environment that we can't control. And so I think it's important for people to not get discouraged if they do see something like that. And I will say Evie has lived a long, happy life. She's very healthy. She's an amazing, they're almost seniors, which is really fun to watch because you would never know that they're almost seniors. But it doesn't bother her. It's just there. I will say though, that she gets regular massages from our friend Victoria at the Balanced Orchid, and she has done the laser therapy on that lump, and it is almost gone.
For real?
For real. It's almost gone. And so it's been very interesting to watch that shrink. And so, there's things that can be done, but I think this kind of goes back to the importance of the lifestyle choices, the importance for detoxification. Because even in those dogs that we have made all of these great choices, you cannot control the universe. And there are going to be things. And so if you can be proactive in your detoxification in the way that they're eating, maybe do some of these little extra things like what we talked about from Dr. Silver's book. I think you're setting yourself up, you're setting your dog up as best as you possibly can. And that's really all that you can do. And again, there's no, if you haven't done all these things and you're just learning about, start now, because you don't know what you're maybe heading off at the pass or what you're bringing to the table by starting right now, how much you're going to help them and benefit them, because you don't know what's coming down the pipe. So.
Yeah, and then, there's always individual differences, and so you can't really compare dog to dog. So Danny was 11. I got her when she was 3 from a nice family. I actually bought her off of Craigslist. Great dog, like exactly what I was looking for. I don't think she'd had very many vaccines, but she'd been spayed. Odds are she'd had some vaccines. And yet, a couple of my other dogs who were more heavily vaccinated had more of a medical history, way more treatment than she'd ever had. They're still alive. They're still functioning. They're older than she was. But then there's that individual genetic background, right? So far, we cannot rewrite their genetic code. And so whatever her genetic history was, whatever she had inherited, whatever effects the universe had on her, this was kind of what came of it. So we control what we can. Yeah, and
I think that's kind of a good message even for me to hear, because I feel like, if I do everything right, then this will never happen.
Right. That's what you want it to be.
Right.
So
and
bad.
Even with these naturally reared puppies, she's perfect. And it's all we're saying is we've covered every base that we can possibly think of. But things still happen. So I think don't get frustrated when you are doing, you're still doing better. They're still going to do better than they would do. But this isn't just this perfect system because the world isn't perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. I think we'll definitely touch on these more. I mean, you've expressed the frustration in, you call them turbo cancers, in what you're seeing, in your practice, and how young these poor dogs are dying of cancer. It's the most tragic thing.
So when we say turbo cancers, what do you mean? Fast growing?
Yeah, very fast moving and developing in younger and younger dogs. So one of my recent patients was a dog with lymphoma who was diagnosed at 3. Basically, a month later, he turned 4.
Okay.
And they did a course of chemotherapy, and they also did natural things. And a week after the chemotherapy was over, he died. There was just no time there for really anything to be effective. So
I had a client seek me out for help with this new puppy that he got, because the last puppy that he had died of cancer at 18 months old. And he was like, I don't know what caused all of that, but when in speaking with him and just really trying to understand, he had that puppy into the vet all the time. He was on a membership plan. This puppy was, any chemical, a lot. And so I couldn't believe it when I heard 18 months old.
And what's sad is he probably loved that puppy so much that he was
devastating.
Trying this membership plan,
trying to keep it healthy.
And it's what's killing him is us trying to keep him healthy.
It's
and that
the
is
very
so
opposite.
Sad.
Yep.
It's like, I feel so bad for him.
Well, and I think what kind of made him pause was my dog growing up, we never brought him to the vet. We never did this. He ate table scraps, blah, 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 blah. He lived to be 19. Right? It's that, like, stop and think. And so then when, we just kind of happened across each other, he was really kind of just, he was completely green. Like, he didn't know any of this stuff, and he's been doing all of it. And I'm actually meeting with him again today to kind of give him his next round of no-sodes. But it is absolutely the most tragic and heartbreaking thing. And then when you realize that it's all of this toxic chemical exposure and it's what people are told to do, it just is awful.
I think this guy's awesome for, like, okay, you realize something's wrong and you are switching course and you are so, like, brave because I think part of it too is you have to admit, like, maybe I don't want to say I did this, but, like, my choices probably led to this. And I think sometimes you want to not think that so bad that you'll just block all this out because you're like, I can't admit that it was me. But if you can admit that it was just, like, you were misled, then you can be open to doing something different, like this guy is with his new dog, and like, good for him, because what a big thing to, like, admit or like face, acknowledge.
Yeah, to deal with. But I think that's true of all of us. Like, we all have learned on the backs of our previous dogs. It's kind of like, note to self, don't do that again. Or next time I'm going to do this.
I'm sure we've all thought of this. I would love to have my first boxer again right now and just have her life, just like do
what would it have been like?
What would it have been? And you can't really do that, but sometimes I'll just sit and kind of daydream about that, like thinking of what I did, like, hey, what if I wouldn't have done that? What if I would have done this instead?
Right.
Yeah, I know, but
I think you let it out, like, in this way. Like, for me, like, the way of letting that guilt feeling out is by doing this. Like, you just push forward and you try to, like, help yourself and others, like, don't do that.
Right, and so that's why, like, all of us, even with our years of experience, we're still tweaking. With the next dog, it's going to be like this.
Right.
With the next dog, we're going to do this instead of what we did before with every single one of them. And so it's like a continual process. And what I see with most of my clients, right, because I'm not in control of the universe. I'm not in control of my own universe either.
Right.
But I do see that we are getting better and better results. So longer lives with fewer problems, fewer like conventional medical crutches that we have to use just to keep the dog going, just to keep the dog alive. And so that's kind of why we're bringing this information out, because this isn't rocket science. Like, everybody should have access to this information. It's something that everybody can do. It's not super complicated. I mean, we've all figured it out. So that's why I think it's important for people to hear this message and to know that, like, there's potentially a way out of this insanity.
Yep. No, we couldn't be more passionate about what we do, and it's because of the dogs that we've all lost and pain that we've experienced with them and looking back on it. So thank you for joining us for this episode of the Crunchy Carnivore Podcast. We look forward to having Nicole on again. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
We always love having
fun. I love talking with people who like the same thing.
Yeah, I know. We're all weird in the same way. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you so much for joining us. Our goal is always to encourage others to seek out the holistic approach by way of education and empowerment. You can check out our online resources at wellspringhaa.com. You can follow us on our YouTube channel, Wellspring Holistic Animal Academy, and you can also find us on Instagram at wellspring_HAA. We hope that this has been helpful and that you continue with us on your journey to holistic health for your pets. As always, we're here to be unapologetically all natural.